clothing across the contemporary world. So basically, I am going to talk about a few things that I'm interested in about the concept of thrifting and fashion. I have been inspired by this project that I was working on in college, which I'll talk about a little later. And also, my mom was really into fashion. This is her skirt, and she's just all about like dressing neatly and looking presentable, and that's something that I really took with me. And why this is important is because honestly there's a lot that is going wrong with the fashion industry, and one of the reasons is because we're not really recycling enough. It's actually one of the most polluting industries in the world and wastes a lot of water. So I'm going to be talking about culture and movement, the Thrift Project, which is the project I worked on in college, and sustainability in the fashion industry. And I also wanted to talk about, there's a documentary called The True Cost, which talks about really dives into these issues if you're interested. And so the first part of this is going to be about the culture and the movement behind thrift shopping. It's something that I've kind of thought a lot about and have been interested in myself. These are some of the thrift stores that have been in existence, and there's different types of vintage shops, thrift stores in general. A lot of these are based in New York and Paris, and like for example, Beacon's Closet and Buffalo Exchange are buy and sell. A lot of them are based. There's one in Paris that's based on kilos and grams, and I really wanted to get into, I didn't realize, well, okay. So the life cycle of a cotton t-shirt. Basically, there's this really interesting NPR or Planet Money podcast about, wait, that's more than, that's.
We can just go.
Yeah.
We can break the rules.
It's going really fast, yeah. So there's a concept where obviously this is the life cycle of a cotton t-shirt. They talk about how a t-shirt in this really huge space in New Jersey is actually, if you take the t-shirt, this actually happens, and it goes all, like they sort them into piles, and some of them go into the vintage, like the really nice vintage shops in Paris, and the other ones go to a thrift store, and some of them go to be sent to places like Kenya, where they actually, the t-shirts like from the Super Bowl and stuff like that are too big for them, so they cut up the shirt and cut off the collar and the hem and the sleeves and then make an entirely new t-shirt, and it's all different colors, so it's really cool and very original. And the new standard, I wanted to kind of just touch upon how a lot of these clothing brands are starting to take action on this concept of sustainability, and Zadie is a company that curates a lot of these clothing collections, and they have something called the New Standard. Everlane is another one that is really into radical transparency and Reformation, and Eileen Fisher. So this is a project that I worked on in college, and it's something that was really near and dear to my heart. It's going a lot quicker than I thought it would be. And so it's something that I was really passionate about, and I worked with two different issues, sustainability and homelessness, because what happened was the clothes were, I would choose them from the Rescue Mission of Trenton, which is a homeless shelter, but they also have a thrift store, and it's like located all the way in Trenton, which is far away from our school. So I brought them from the homeless shelter to our school to be sold at a pop-up shop on the campus, and it was really fun because I was able to collaborate with a lot of the organizations on campus and also a record shop, and really make it a thing. And then all of the money that was generated was donated back to the Rescue Mission. Sustainability in fashion, because of this idea of thrifting and recycling our clothing, there's a lot of different types of materials that are now being used to make clothes instead of just cotton. This is recycled cotton, and this is hemp. This is actually a dress that's made out of pineapple. This is bamboo, and then obviously you have your the new everything that's based on what's it called? Fashion technology. And then there's the concept of reselling on the internet and using the internet as a tool to buy and sell, but also to I'll go back to that. But this is a series of marketing campaigns from two brands. The first is Reformation, and I thought it was really interesting because of the way that they really present themselves, is really targeted toward a certain individual, which is females in their 20s, 30s, 40s, who are able to purchase these items of clothing. And I think it's really interesting because they're obviously a market for this, and it's obviously working, and a lot of their marketing campaigns are very cheeky and definitely geared toward that really educated female individual. So back to reselling on eBay. There's a girl named Sophia Amoruso who started this website called Nasty Gal, which maybe some of you have heard of. And she really started this whole like girl boss movement, but really she just started it because she needed money and was going around to thrift shops and then buying the clothes and selling them on her eBay shop, and then suddenly it became a website, and now she's a multimillionaire not even owning her own company. And finally, I wanted to kind of go over these ideas a little more. The concept of buying unique vintage pieces versus buying from fast fashion places like Zara and H&M, who are all very fast and they have quick turnover, but they're also starting to kind of go in this direction. Especially H&M, they have their own line, which is which has a lot of controversial moments to it, but it actually is pretty sustainable, and like if you read about their history, it's actually quite interesting. And some of the ways that we can kind of integrate this concept into our lives is to continue to swap and buy and sell from each other. And this is a friend of mine has a clothing or a blog called Paris to Go, and she focuses on only zero waste. She's completely zero waste. Her apartment has zero garbage, and this is her previous wardrobe. She updated it since then, but she has a 10-piece wardrobe, which is really incredible, and that's all she wears ever. And I thought that was really interesting to share. I mean, and I said, express yourself, because there's a lot of different ways that you can kind of think about this and the ethics of sustainability. Like, is it okay that I'm buying this shirt from Vietnam and like it's probably made in a factory that's not super ethical? But really, there are no rules. Really, it's all about self-expression and making your own conscious choices.
Yeah. Q&A for everyone. I'll start.
Okay.
In terms of, you're talking about H&M and what they're doing now.
Yeah.
So what is this new line that they're trying? Because H&M, it's a fast fashion, right? Is what
Yeah.
they're criticized for.
Yeah. I should probably have read a little more about it, but I am aware that they got a lot of. They had a clothing line that was like, they claimed to be sustainable, but then they kind of reformed it, and now it's, they have like brochures about it. Like if you read it on their website, it actually is, and they write about like where it came from. And it's like not everything is, but there's a separate line in H&M that's specifically there.
Like Reformation is like here, or Everlane is like here are factories.
Yeah, and they're not necessarily sustainable. They're just transparent.
Yeah. You mean Everlane isn't? It's like necessary, or
I'm not really sure. Yeah.
So first of all, I don't think you ever define sustainability and what that means in the context of your movement. And secondly, how do you account for the class politics of what it means to be taking clothing from a thrift store that at one point, prior to the 2000s, when hipsterism came into culture as, you know, there was a combination of sustainability-based thrifting, and then there was also a fashion-based desire for thrift shop clothing that essentially funneled clothing from thrift shops that were run by nonprofits to serve low-income people to then high-income boutique areas. So there's a class politics that I don't think you've really addressed in your presentation that I'd like to hear you speak more about.
Okay, so first of all, I guess to answer the first question about sustainability, you're right, I didn't define it. And I guess it was more...
Well, I don't know, there is a definition that most...
And really, I wasn't really trying to talk about, it was more about the concept of thrift shopping, and just the basic principles behind it. And like I mentioned in the end, obviously these are all, it's just kind of a brief overview of what it could be, and basically trying to educate people somewhat about the elements of sustainability, which I guess to answer really just means, to me, I think there's levels of what you can do, right? You can go all the way down to like the fabric being sustainably produced. You can call like fair trade being sustainable in the way that like it's
trade
being
is focused on labor relations, not
exactly,
sourcing.
but also
So
pollution.
sustainability is different than labor relations.
But also pollution. It talks about the way that the factories are polluting in general. And okay, so to answer class politics, so there definitely are people who are buying from the real nonprofit organizations, but they're still being paid, and then they're just reselling it again for a higher profit because they realize that these things are curated and kind of they're able to be sold at a higher profit. So they're just taking these and putting it in kind of like rebranding it and remarketing it in like a separate shop, so that people who don't have the time to go to the nonprofit shelters are able to shop here, kind of like
Doesn't that make a
Clade.
statement though about who deserves access to specific items in fashion?
Could you repeat that?
Doesn't that make a statement about who deserves access to specific items in fashion? Because if you're identifying specific items as curatable, that's inherently saying that they should be removed from otherwise low-class spaces of shopping.
I don't think so. I think they're just being accessible to other people.
People with more money.
Exactly.
I don't know many people who run vintage shops who are rich. You know, these aren't like that. This isn't the top 1%. Like,
Have you been to San Francisco?
No, but I don't know. I'm from New Zealand, and I'm like the people who run the vintage shops. People get angry about this.
So in America,
And I'm like my friends who are like, it's like they're not like the top 1% like stealing off the poor. They're like someone who's really passionate about fashion, running a vintage shop. Like I don't really.
right, but the way in which the politics of class work out is taking from.
Well, you could also say the same thing about the Pomelo and Clade and those two stores who are like basically taking stuff from Sean State and reformatting it into something that can be sold for hundreds of dollars. Right. So is that wrong?
We can talk about it later.
Okay.
Okay, go back and forth because battery life for camera. We only have so much battery life.
Maybe one more question, and then we'll move on to anybody else.
Do you think maybe I missed it because you were talking so fast and moving about. But could you talk a little bit more about the project you did?
Yeah.
Yeah, I like to hear that.
Sure. Yeah. So basically, it's I did a lot of research. It was like a community service like kind of organization that I was a part of in college, and I was able to I was like tasked with this project of like, what could we do with all of this clothing, like, and one of the ideas was to bring it to our campus and have like a permanent shop, but since that wasn't available, we kind of played with the idea, but then with like bureaucracy in the school, we weren't able to like have an actual space, so we decided to make it a pop-up shop, which was actually more successful because it's more it's like more concentrated. So basically it was just taking clothes from the local homeless shelter, which there's a lot of things you can do to help them, but one of the ways is to buy clothing from there instead of somewhere else. And it's 100%, it's like all secondhand clothing, and a lot of the stuff was really cool, like flannel and like just duck boots and a lot of stuff that a lot of college students wouldn't normally have access to. So they were able to come on, we brought those items to the campus and like just had a pop-up shop where people could come and like hang out and buy ties and vinyl records and things like that. And it was really nice because it wasn't like a for-profit or anything. All the money that we made went back to them. So yeah, like it is kind of selling at a higher profit, but like putting in a different location actually makes all the difference.